Within 100 miles of Hanoi, the carrier Enterprise hurls her thunderbolts at North Vietnam. One of 6 carriers off the coast, she has a crew of 5,000. Payday here is $500,000. In the dim-lit rooms below, pilots are briefed for a raid.
What I'm saying is this, that the weather over the beach is probably going to be worse.
Over the beach is the pilot's slang for North Vietnam. In one respect, it's the war the Americans would like to fight. No Viet Cong or jungle here. The pilots are mostly college graduates in their 20s, but the job is tough enough. The losses have been considerable. A year of bombing has cost 250 jets shot down. They spend up to 6 weeks at a time on station in the China Sea. They go out, sometimes twice a day, out to face targets which are becoming more heavily defended, and therefore greater risks. The bombing has so far failed to achieve its stated aims, to force the North Vietnamese to a conference, to stop the aid they send south. The real military targets, like industry and Hanoi, the pilots can't touch. Many of the targets now are wooden bridges and dirt roads. And the pilots sometimes feel they're trivial for the risks involved.
Stand clear of jet intakes and jet exhaust. Start all go aircraft.
From the decks of Enterprise, the bombing goes on round the clock. They're away for an hour or so. No losses this time. The bombing gets closer to Hanoi. It's now more intense. But the big ship is pulling her punches. What do the pilots say the bombing achieves?
I think it's pretty clear that it's disrupted the lines of communication and transport.
How do you notice that? How do you know?
Well, simply because we've cut all the roads and knocked down most of the bridges, and of course the intelligence people tell us this. I'm not sure how managed that news is, but I think it's pretty obvious we have a substantial effect on the supply lines.
You don't really know for sure just exactly how much damage you are doing, and I think most of us would like to know, would like to have a firm idea. We probably don't.
Air power is a two-edged sword. The innocent suffer too, and they suffer in growing numbers. There's only one hospital like this in Vietnam. It gets a subsidy from the Americans of $150,000 a year. The young wife, carried by her husband, lost both her legs in an air raid in the Delta. She has 2 children. Of the 500 patients coming in every month here, almost all are civilians. Some have had limbs chopped off by landmines and terrorist explosions. But nearly all this arbitrary misery is due to aerial bombing. The nature of guerrilla war means that the communists live and fight in the villages, always among the people. Therefore, the bombing the Viet Cong inevitably leads to civilian casualties. This year, 600,000 tons of bombs will be dropped on Vietnam. 4 more hospitals like this one are going to be built. They're likely to be needed. This woman is pregnant. She's lost a leg. All she remembers of the day it happened is the sound of the planes diving. An American sergeant often comes to the hospital in his spare time. On his own initiative, he goes out and collects small, limbless patients from the Delta area where he's stationed.
We is for fitting or for finish also?
No, you fitted him last week.
And today finish, eh?
Today finished.
Yeah, you take back, eh?
Yes.
Yeah. How many other...
In an average week, he'll bring to the hospital about 8 injured children. We'll help to see that they get new limbs.
If they are ready to go back, we can take them back.
No, you see, some because you come Saturday. And we take measurements on Tuesday because Monday was holiday.
Monday, yeah.
Yes, sir.
The more ghastly cases are the multiple amputations. It was a daytime raid in the Delta for her. Her husband was killed the same day. She lost both her legs. Her baby lost one. When the stumps have healed, the technicians make careful measurements of what's left. The hospital's been open now for 6 months. In that time, it's fashioned 850 new limbs. The devastating effectiveness of air power may well convince the Viet Cong that there can be no total victory. Airstrikes are what the Viet Cong fear most. It's inflicted bloody defeats. But this is a political as much as a military war. It's difficult not to conclude that airstrikes give the Viet Cong a political advantage. The young girl is having her first fitting. She comes from one of the twilight zones that are government controlled by day and belong to the VC at night. It happened 2 months ago. It was night in her village. She remembers hearing the aircraft coming. Hiding the tears, she straps it on and learns to move around all over again. The bomb that blew her leg off killed her mother. The girl is 17. She was engaged to be married then. She's not now. The artificial limbs are made by Juan Monros, an expert the Americans brought here from Spain.
I am accustomed to see many cases in many countries around where I am doing this kind of job. But this shocked me than any other place. Most because there are so many civilians and many people don't know what happened. They stay in the homes, in the forest. The bombs go there, Viet Cong, aeroplanes, everything, drop a bomb there, and they don't know what happened. They don't know what it is, this war. When I arrived here, we had difficult to find patients the first months. Now, we have plenty. And next month, much more, because one patient tells the other in the village, and they come here, everybody, to be fitted with artificial limbs.
Juan Monros is leaving Vietnam soon. He's trained these Vietnamese assistants to carry on after he goes. There'll be enough for them to do. There's another kind of war. Down the jungle paths among the villages, the Americans try to expand their lavish aid programs. Their efforts to raise the standard of living are all too often met with Viet Cong sabotage. This area near Saigon is barely secure. The VC are in full control, only 2 miles away. A young American from Mississippi is in charge of United States aid projects in this province. It's still a contested area in the battle for mines. A crash course in the States taught him Vietnamese.
Ông làm luôn không? Làm chút chút vậy nè. Ông có nước không? Có chứ. Ở đâu? Ông trồng rau không? Hả? Ông trồng rau không? Rau hả? Dạ. Có lâu không? Lâu mà. Lâu. Nay có chừng.
He's in the front line as much as any soldier. I asked Dessay Anderson what they were building here.
This is one of several farm demonstration projects which we have here in the province. And this particular project which we're looking at right now is a dam and a hydraulic ram project, we've dammed up the water here and it will be forced up through this ramping system so that crops can be raised the year round.
You provide all the money for this, but how important is it that they work on the thing themselves?
Well, this is critical so that they begin to achieve some sort of emotional involvement with the governmental system. And we feel that this makes a lot of difference, for example, in whether or not the Viet Cong would try to destroy or hinder the project in any way.
How
hampering.
genuine do you think this demand of theirs is for things like schools? Or is it a demand of your creating?
Well, in a certain measure, certainly it is partially stimulated. But, for example, as far as classrooms are concerned, we programmed 41 classrooms in the province, a provincial budget for this year. And instead of that 41, the people, those were built, but in addition to that, the people made applications on the hamlet level and asked for 75 additional classrooms, which they built themselves. And then they work along with various military units that can be enlisted to help them, including the local militia, the popular forces, and they build it themselves.
Do you feel that the military presence in Vietnam is overemphasized?
Well, certainly I would tend to feel that the basic role of constructing the Vietnamese society is the most important thing. The military provide the shield, and the construction of the society is the reason we're here working with this element of it.
Do you believe they make the distinction between what you're doing for them and what the VC say they'll do for them? Do they really understand, do you believe?
I think some inroads are now being made. I think that they appreciate that the Viet Cong are essentially a negative force in this province.
I'll tell you what, we buy 2 pair. Him buy a pair, I buy a pair, 100 feet.
Make it 3 pairs.
100 feet. Oh, wait, 3 pair. 1, 2, 3 pair.
200. 3 for 200.
225. Oh, take it down, take it down.
Me number 1, you number 1. We friends, okay? Okay?
The 300,000 Americans in Vietnam have another impact. Their aid projects and their pay packets have erupted like a volcano in the middle of the economy. The black market in American consumer goods spreads like lava over the pavements of Saigon, a tide of inflation. It's all smuggled out from the American service canteens. The GIs find that many things intended only for them they can't buy anymore, and they too have to shop out on the footpaths.
We go to the PX, we buy the lighter fluid, we bring it downtown, we trade them for, well, the lighter fluid cost us 26 cents, American money. We come down here, we sell it for 100 piastres, which is about, 85 cents. They put it on the market, they turn around and sell it for 120p. We try and buy it back, they charge us 140p. So we try, go to the PX and get things and come back down here and trade, swap across. And we get our things back for the same price we had to pay for them originally. I'm hungry too, Mama Son. I'm hungry GI. I have many baby sons to feed. I have no money. Very, very nice. Number 1, right? Number 1. This your child?
No, she's just begging for herself.
No, Mama Son. 0. 0.
Let's go.
Didi, 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 Didi. Thank you.
Mr. Long's house is on stilts over the Saigon River. He's a young civil servant and lives with his family. It's a typical Sunday lunch. They're Buddhists. They eat well despite the galloping cost of living. Food is good and fairly cheap. His father worked as a minor civil servant for the French in the post office. He's now retired on a tiny pension. Mr. Long's wife is going to have their first child. They can't travel anywhere without danger. Life in Saigon, they say, is claustrophobic. If they could, they'd like to get away. All they've known for 20 years is war. In spite of having plenty to eat, Mr. Long and his family feel a sense of despair.
My friends, like me, they're complaining about daily troubles, and sometimes they confess to me that they are searching for political conviction. They lack it, as well as me. And if we have no real political conviction, we are in a state of half despair sometimes if our means of living are too low, you see.
What are the things that are missing from
That
life
is a spirit of discipline. We want to be put in a mold, a strong mold, by someone who is worth to be our leader. Up to now, we have seen many governments, many leaders, they pretend to do their most for the countries, but now we are wary of them. We become more and more cynical. That's not my own opinion, that is the same for many of my friends.
Vietnam is 14 million peasants in black pajamas. This is the latest experiment to give a new sense of purpose to those who oppose the Viet Cong. They sing a patriotic song, written only a few weeks ago. 5,000 graduates from a new school that trains teams to take over local government at the grassroots. They'll now go out to Vietnam's 43 provinces. They'll take over local government after troops have cleared out the VC. There have been about 70 previous attempts along these lines. They've failed. This is the most ambitious yet. It's financed by the Central Intelligence Agency. This school will graduate 40,000 students a year. They're split up into teams of 59 men. The latest bid to defeat communism is an exact copy of the communist cell technique.
Each 59-man team is composed of one team leader with one small staff, which is composed of 3 medics, 1 psychological warfare man, 1 intelligence man. The team leader is assisted by 2 assistant team leaders, the first in charge of 3 platoons of 11 armored propaganda men each, and the second is in charge of 3 sections composed of 6 people each. The first is the census grievance team, the second is the civilian affairs group, and the third is the new life development group.
The school's guiding light is Major Mai, a Catholic soldier who fought against the French with the Viet Minh. He left the North when the communists took over leadership of the independence movement against France. Mai indoctrinates his students with a fiery nationalism, but they're selected by province chiefs, who are often corrupt. His students are patriots. Patriots for who? I asked what ideology they would take with them when they went back to the villages.
We have 4,845 years of history. So out of this long period of life, our ancestors have left us something. And we have it in our own mythology, our legends, and so on. We have the dragon as the force of the matter, and the fairy as the force of the spirit. So dragon and fairy is matter plus the spirit. So this is, in essence, what we try to give them.
But the reality, if you talk about matter and spirit, the reality is civil war in the country, and Lord knows how many governments in Saigon in the last few years. Now, what do these people represent?
They represent a loss of balance.
Up by strong central government in Saigon, which you haven't got now.
Well, for the peasants, government doesn't go further than the district level. So what happens in Saigon doesn't really matter.
The revolutionary cadres pledged loyalty to the fatherland. They vowed to be well-disciplined, without self-interest, to unite to fight the communists. Did he have any in his village?
I
Trong tỉnh của anh có nhiều cộng sản không?
Dạ, trong tỉnh tôi thì có chỉ du kích thường thôi, như tỉnh An Giang.
There are several guerrillas in my province.
Several what?
Guerrillas.
Several guerrillas. What will he do to them if he catches them?
Khi nào mà anh bắt được những các cái người du kích cộng sản đó thì anh làm gì đối với họ?
Dạ, khi bắt được du kích cộng sản thì nếu mà những người đó là những người mà căm thù nhất sâu sắc của tôi thì tôi sẽ đem mà giết.
If these guerrillas are those whom I really hate, then I'll kill them.
Under the rubber trees near the Cambodian border, troops of the 1st Infantry Division, Big Red 1. The American offensives are now penetrating Viet Cong base areas like this that have been inviolate for many years. The commander of 1st Infantry Division is General William Depew. I asked him what American combat troops had achieved.
Well, I've only been with the division for a month and a half, but I'm starting my 3rd year in Vietnam, and I can say that a year ago, May last year, things were grim. And when you compare the situation today with then, it's the difference between day and night. The VC were closing in on Saigon, roads were closed all over the country. There were no offensive operations into base areas, and all of these things now are moving in the right direction. And I have no doubt but what the military situation is already well in hand and improving very rapidly.
Well, do you believe that you've ever really smashed a big main force, a regular VC force? Or have they all just gone back to being farmers and are waiting for you to go away again?
No, the big forces are waiting up here in the jungle, and one of these days we'll have our day.
Well, they'll fight, you mean?
Well, they'll have to fight or lose the war. And when they fight, they'll lose.
Dawn, in the sticky heat and fear of the jungle, the troops of Big Red 1, a battalion operation. They've been marching all through the night, 10 miles. Somewhere ahead is their objective, a Viet Cong village which hasn't been entered by government forces for nearly 10 years. The division has a psychological warfare officer who has planned the attack.
He'll circle the area. We will then announce to the people that the place is cordoned off, that there is no escape, that you must form at the place that the district chief says, which is in this case a burned out Catholic church. We'll assemble all the people there, tell them to bring their identification cards. They will then be checked by the military security service.
But how do you know who these people will be?
We're bringing with us 4 people that escaped from this hamlet several months ago and are now living under a government-controlled hamlet.
And they'll point out the VC to you?
They will come right out and finger each man. They will point out who is a VC, who is on the blacklist, who are part of the cadre. We're actually routing out the VC infrastructure to assist the government authorities in our efforts.
Now, what happens to the VC when you do identify them, when these men do point them out?
If they run, blap. That's it. If
Blap?
they run.
What's that?
Well, have you ever heard an AR-14 fire in the jungle? It's blap.
You'll kill him.
Yes, right.
Scenes like this aren't pretty, but the Americans don't try to hide them. The Viet Cong and their methods behind their lines are not open to scrutiny. The old man was trying to leave the village in the dawn. When he saw the troops in ambush, he ran. He's wounded in the legs, and they'll evacuate him to a hospital. Intelligence reports had told the troops during the night that they could expect to find 600 VC in this village. They're not here now. As they assemble by the church, the peasants present a familiar sight. There are no young men here, only women and children and the elders of the village. The VC, if they were here, are hiding somewhere else. It must be assumed that these people are the wives and children of the Viet Cong. The GIs have taken over the village without major resistance from the Viet Cong. They're now faced with the next step in this kind of war, convincing these people of an alternative to Viet Cong rule. Teams of medics come in with the troops. They distribute drugs, extract a few teeth. The inhabitants are going to be resettled in another village 5 miles away. They want to know when they can come back. They can't. Tonight the village will be blown up by artillery. As they leave for the other village, the operation is almost over. The Americans are pulling out. The cart is packed with belongings. The Viet Cong have been here 10 years, the Americans 3 hours. The war in Vietnam, at the last, is the war for the heart and mind of this woman.